Well, Kelly's Court is back in session. On the docket today, the American dream going up in flames. Charred rubble, all that's left of the Cranick family home in Tennessee. Firefighters standing and watching as flames devoured the house. Not one drop of water was sprayed on the blaze because the homeowners were late with a $75 fee for rural fire coverage. First responders started battling the inferno only when it jumped to the property of a neighbor who did pay the fee. So, did the Cranicks have any grounds to object? Let's ask our panel. Former prosecutor John Spilbor and Fox News legal analyst Mercedes Colwin. All right, so John, let me start with you. He didn't pay the fee. A deal's a deal. He could have paid it. They would have been there. He didn't do it.
No, this is disgusting. This was an emergency situation, Megan. This wasn't rescuing their cat from a tree. This was life and death. And I don't think that the fire department can say, hey, we had a contract and you didn't pay your measly $75, so we're going to watch. Not even like just not show up. Watch as your home burns down. That's absolutely ridiculous. They could have put out the fire, sent him a bill for 10 times that or more, and it probably would have gotten paid, and their house would have been saved. This is crazy.
Mercedes, how about it? Because, you know, they say, the Cranicks say that this had happened before with other homeowners, and the firefighters did show up and did put the fire out. So did they have grounds to sort of reasonably rely on that past conduct to expect it would happen again here?
Well, that's a great point, Megan, but we don't really know. What the fire department comes there and says they're not on the list, $75 is $75, but they also said, hey, if we don't adhere to this rule, then this entire fire department is going to be disbanded, because imagine if every homeowner said, you know what, there is this past conduct, and they do show up and they do put out the fire. They're not going to say no to us. Eventually, no one's fires are going to be able to be put out because everyone in the community won't have a fire department, and that's why they have to be so draconian. I'm sure that if there were lives in that home, they would have stepped in.
No, they wouldn't, because the reports are that there were 3 dogs and a cat. Now, those are lives
human
inside
lives,
the home.
though, Megan.
Yeah, but still, I mean, you're standing there. I mean, you're telling me you're going to look at the firefighters, John, and say, my 3 dogs and my cat are dying in there right now. Could you please put out the fire? And the firefighters are really able to stand there and say, you didn't pay $75.
And apparently that's what they did. So the homeowner should have rushed himself back into the house, because then apparently a life would have been in danger and they would have turned the hoses on.
Right.
This is so, we would never have a situation where an ambulance, an EMT worker would be hovering over a nearly dead body in the street and say, hey, buddy, this ride's going to cost you $800. Are you good for it before I put you in the back of the bus?
But John,
how far could you take it? But she raises a very good point. How far could you take this, Mercedes, where you charge people for 911 and somebody calls and says, my child is choking, and they say, you didn't pay your fee?
Yeah, I mean, it sounds really draconian, but it has to be. The bottom line is this. If we don't adhere to this, no one's going to be safe. There are going to be lots of these phone calls. No one's going to be there to respond to them. That's why they have to adhere, because, frankly, with all the attention that this particular article, that this show has had, you know that everyone in that community is going to be paying their $75, and that's the message. These are
yes, they're going to pay it now.
Know.
You're right, but can they sue, Jonna? Can they sue based on those past experiences where they say the fire department made exceptions, and apparently the fire chief is allowed to do that on the spot, but declined to do so?
I actually think they can, and not only can they sue, Megan, I have a feeling their insurance company could get involved in this and say, wait a minute, we're a third-party beneficiary of your little $75 contract, and you should have put the house out instead of letting it burn to the ground, and now they have to pay a much larger bill.
And yet, nonetheless, Mercedes, quickly, does he have anybody to blame but himself?
Oh, exactly right, Megan. Just pay the $75. He wouldn't have had this happen to him, and that's really the bottom line. He was on notice. He knew they weren't going to come to rescue. If he didn't pay it, just pay it.
Thanks, ladies. One final word for our viewers. Legally, the fire department did nothing wrong. Mr. Cranick should have paid the fee. The county's policy, however, stinks. There should be a provision that allows the firefight, but with an enormous fee attached. That would encourage people to pay the fee up front and fairly penalize those who don't. More in a moment.